All right, so what I'm gonna be doing in this video here is showing you how to generate high converting email campaigns without having to rely on spamming your audience with discounts and sales. All right, and the reason that I say this is because this is exactly how we've generated over $50 million for our e-commerce clients. And by watching this video, you're gonna save a ton of time and generate a lot more revenue by sending content that your audience actually finds valuable, as well as, skipping the trial and error phase of having to figure out what campaigns convert well. All right, so in this video, I'm gonna be showing you, examples from our clients. I'm gonna give you access to a swipe file or a library of all of our best converting campaigns. And yeah, I'm basically just gonna show you the overall frameworks that have consistently worked the best for our clients. And this topic is extremely important because most brands have no idea, what to actually put in their email campaigns. So they end up just relying on, discounts and sales and sort of training their audience to only be opening their emails looking for the next sale, right? Which obviously you don't want, because then you can't sell your product at full price anymore. Alrighty, so before we dive into this video, if you want access to this doc, the link to download it is in the description. All right, so the high converting email campaign formula. So concept number one is the authority threshold. All right, so essentially you need to reach the authority threshold in the psychology of the person who's reading the emails in order for him to, view your product as valuable enough for him to, fork over his hard-earned cash in exchange for your product at full price, okay? So when customers view you as the top option in your category, your niche, they'll buy from you at full price. And focused content approach. So this is where we focus on one unique selling point or value proposition, objection, pain point, etc. per email. All right, and we'll get into this in more depth, but basically most brands try to, they mostly have the problem of being too diffuse with their messaging. They want to put a bunch of content into a single email, but that's not really how, emails work. It's not how people read emails. It's not like they're not going through call to action number one, followed by, and then coming back to the email and call to action number two. Like, that's not how it works, all right? If you have too many CTAs and nobody's gonna click on anything, all right, if you have one CTA, a certain percentage are gonna click on that, okay? Optimal frequency, we've found, and this is gonna depend on the brand, but anywhere from 2 to 3 campaigns weekly. You could do 4 if you also, target other segments as well. But for the typical brand, you're looking at 2 to 3 campaigns per week. Most brands fail by sending too few emails, too many emails, or irrelevant content. This framework solves all 3 problems, all right? Content topics explained, all right? So, and here you're having an example from a nutrition supplement brand, let's just say, all right? Essentially, the concept here is you wanna focus on one angle per email. And basically what I was just saying earlier, most brands spread their readers' attention too thin by leading them into various different directions, all right? So we just wanna focus on one per email to prove the superiority of the product and position it as the premier solution to their problems, all right? And over time, as they consume our content, the value that is built compounds until our brand is indisputably the authority in the category, all right? And you do that by focusing on one piece at a time. All right, so in this example, this is for a supplement brand. So here are the different sort of types of content that you would focus on, let's just say. Again, we're focusing on one topic per email. So muscle building, if you're making, an email campaign, sort of educating them on that, then you want to focus on that one topic, all right? You don't want to be covering all these different topics. So you have muscle building. So for example, and this is one category, and beneath that category, you would have sort of subtopics. So best exercise splits, protein timing, workout frequency, and then, another topic would be diet. And underneath this category, you would have all these different subcategories or different topics you could talk about. Like, here's the best food, here's the best appetite, or here's how to increase your appetite control. But the last thing you want to do is just write a full essay, which I see a lot of brands doing. So this is just an example. Educational content examples, all right? So each sort of educational content piece really fits into one of 3 buckets, and it's either going to be describing the problem, how-to content, or describing the solution, right? And sometimes it'll blend some of these, but this is generally sort of the best way to think about it. So some examples of describing the problem, why so many fail to lose weight, why it's so easy to fall off from your habits, or the problem with most toolboxes out there if you're selling toolboxes. All right. So focusing on the problem. And the whole idea here is that by describing your reader's problem or, common problem they're likely to have, they're more likely to trust you as, a solution, a provider of a solution. All right, how-to content. So how to style neutral pillows for a queen bed. And this would be in the homeware space or home decor. How to overcome training plateaus. All right, so this would be in the workout niche, or if you're selling supplements. The history of ancestral nutrition, if you happen to be selling organ supplements, let's just say. All right, and finally, describing the solution. All right, now for example, why our protein powder is so much more digestible if their main problem is the digestibility of different protein powders. What customers are saying about our jewelry, so this would be like customer reviews. How our clean energy tea works to beat the afternoon slump. If the main problem of your consumers is finding some sort of tea to, help them beat the afternoon slump, you get tired in the afternoon. Last example, why our boat equipment is so much more durable. All right, so let's say your competitors, one of the main things that your customers talk about their previous boating equipment is that it breaks after a couple months. All right, so you could talk about how your boating equipment solves that problem by lasting, up to a year, or it has a year-long warranty or something like that. And essentially, educational content should add value to the reader while also positioning your brand/product as a solution. All right, so just talk about the problems, talk about the solution, and then sort of just, position your brand/product as, oh, you have this problem? Well, we just happen to have, this product that we designed to solve that problem. All right, so here's an example of a campaign that is describing the customer's problem. So this one, all right, so stiff joints, dull skin, unhappy gut. All right, so basically just calling out the, customers' common pain points. Your body is likely missing key building blocks. All right, so sort of building curiosity about the solution. And then call to action here, you want this to be above the fold, of course. And then in the actual copy, describe, the problem here. So stiff joints, blah, blah. No matter your collagen loss still happens. After age 30, we naturally lose about 1% each year. So basically, why do you have all these problems? Well, collagen loss. So now the customer's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I guess that makes sense. That matters because collagen is a major building block for blah, 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 gut lining. And when these levels drop, these issues can start to show up. The good news, our living collagen can help. What makes our living collagen special is the bioactive growth factors you won't find in most commercial collagens out there. All right. So now we're describing the solution. So this one's kind of a combination of describing the problem, but also, the solution, which, is its own campaign type, the problem plus solution sort of campaign angle. And then we're also describing, all right, not only is our collagen supplement the solution, but it's the only solution compared to all of our competitors. Why? Because of this unique mechanism, which is the bioactive growth factors that you won't find in other commercial collagens out there. We want you to experience the real benefits, blah, blah, blah. All right, so you don't have to give a 15% off, but in this case, this brand was running it as part of their promotion, but this will work just fine without it, all right? Moving on, all right, how to style campaign. All right, so this is for a boating brand, how to choose your bottom paint. All right, so this is a common sort of topic that people who, own boats and maintain their boats sort of need to figure out when they're, in the market for bottom paint because it wears out. So it's like, okay, like how should I choose my boating paint or my bottom paint? And then we send them this email and they're like, oh, perfect. I was actually just wondering about this. What to know about hard versus ablative paint. This is the different types of paint. Did you renew your blah, blah, blah? Anti-fouling paint protects your hull from marine growth. All right, so it's not just cosmetic, it slows you down, blah, blah, blah. So basically describing the problem a little bit, but then, how do you solve it? And here's how you sort of assess what factors you need in your bottom paint. And that's what we're describing. Like that's sort of the main value of this campaign. So which paint is right for you? And then just laying it out in a very convenient sort of infographic here. So here's the hard versus ablative, pros and cons. It weighs it out. If your old paint is all this, then recoating is essential. We're carried top brands. All right, and then positioning the brand. It's like, all right, so choose what type of paint that you want. All right, depending on which one you chose, we actually happen to carry the top brands in the space, such as these, all right? Shop bottom paint, and then of course down here, just any sort of supporting content, like, all right, if you have questions, you can just email us and, you know, our support team will help you, all right? But basically solving a main problem here. Here's how to choose it. Here's the deciding factors that you need to consider, all right? And once you figured out what type of paint suits your situation, you know, you can come shop with us. We have all these top brands, all right? And then finally, the solution-focused campaign sort of category. This is for a skincare brand. All right, so here is what users have to say, and this is a particular product. So oil cleansing might seem unconventional, but it's a game changer. Unlike, you know, harsh soapy cleansers, Cleanse works with your skin's microbiome, its natural ecosystem, to remove makeup and dirt while leaving your protective barrier intact. Don't just take our word for it. Here's what our customers have to say. All right, so basically at this stage, we're targeting the people who already know that they have a problem. They already know that they're in the market for a new, you know, sort of skincare product. And we're basically just showing them the solution. All right, it's like, well, you know, you're in the market for, you know, a new type of cleanser. You've tried all of these harsh soapy cleansers in the past and they didn't work, but here's Cleanse, you know, our best-selling product, and here's what all of our customers have to say. So, and then of course, just reviews. And when you're picking out the reviews, you want to pick out the ones that speak specifically to this problem, sort of address those objections here. So I've been using this product for close to 10 years. It leaves my blah, blah, blah. All right, you know, we're focusing on the solution here, and here's sort of a real example from one of their customers, all right? Basically describing the desired end result of the reader, the person who's reading the email with the customer review. It's like, oh, like, you're looking for all of this stuff, like keeping your skin clean and moisturized and never dry. And the person reading it's like, oh, like that's exactly what I'm looking for. Now that person wants to buy at full price. All right, and here you can get access to our campaign swipe file, which, you know, is basically a library of some of our best performing email campaigns. And you'll be able to look through all of these, you know, and take inspiration, read some of them and get some ideas for your own brand. Or you can just, you know, duplicate this and use some of these as templates for your own brand. Obviously, you got to switch out the design and copy and all that, but you get the idea. So if you want access to this, the link is in the description. So, all right, so campaign angles that convert. So these are basically just some proven campaign frameworks that you can use as you're thinking of, you know, different ideas for your own campaign content. So first one is the benefit highlight campaign. So basically just focusing on a single benefit of your product. So for example, this might be, you know, if you're selling jewelry, for instance, this is just the first one that comes to mind, but the jewelry, the earrings that like have the poking thing in the back, obviously makes it a lot more comfortable to wear, lasts a lot longer. It's more sort of, it blends in with your life more than traditional, how do you say, the traditional earrings, let's just say, all right? So super random example, but that's just what I thought of. So think of a single benefit of your product, like why do people buy your product? And then focus on one so that we could, you know, focus on convincing the reader on that one particular point versus like 3 different points that we focus on and the reader isn't convinced on any of them, or maybe they're not unconvinced, but it's not necessarily, you know, they're not really bought into the fact that this actually is like a real benefit to them. Let's just say it's like it's way easier to convince someone, you know, one benefit per email. So that's number one. Number 2 is the USP highlight campaign. And this is basically where we're highlighting a specific unique feature that separates you from competitors. All right. And this could be anything really, but ultimately it's going to be the most effective when it's something that, you know, your customers actually, you know, factor in their purchasing decision when they buy from you. So, you know, read your Amazon customer reviews. Like, why did they buy from you? Why did they not buy from your competitor? Okay. So one example that comes to mind is, you know, for a supplement brand, you know, if you're selling protein powder, let's just say, this is a real example. This particular brand's customers value sustainability. All right, so that is one of their sort of unique selling points versus their competitors is they sell their product, their protein powder, etc., in steel cans, which is way more sustainable than, you know, plastic bags. So you might talk about that, talk about how it's more sustainable, talk about, you know, what sort of, sort of show them how it's different. So basically show them, visually, like here's the steel packaging and here's the common plastic bag and here's how it's so much better for the environment to use steel, etc. And just talk about that. The FAQ campaign, so take one common question and answer it in depth. All right, so if you sell supplements, like for example, organ supplements for women, okay, talk about how long it takes for the organ supplements to start working and for them to start seeing results, because they might get it, or before even purchasing, they might be thinking, oh, like how long do I have to take this for, all right? So just figure out what your common customer questions are, and you're gonna be seeing this in your customer reviews as well as your FAQ page or in your customer support emails. They'll be asking you, it's like, oh, how long does it take to, blah, blah, blah. And basically just answer that in an email. Now, obviously that's super valuable because these are questions that people already had, but they just didn't feel like asking for whatever reason, all right? And then finally, the classic reviews campaign. All right, the more real reviews that potential customers see of, current customers, the more bought in they are to, your product, the more likely they are to believe that it's legit, and the more likely they are to, believe that it'll work for them. If it's working for all these people, oh, it must not just be, just empty hype, but it actually works. Good example is seeing 5 stars on Amazon. Whenever you look up an item like a book or something on Amazon and you see that it's like 4.8 stars, it's like, oh, this must be good. So same concept here. So these campaign angles let you rotate through different angles week after week without having to offer discounts to drive sales, all right? So you could still run discounts when you want, for certain holidays like Mother's Day, let's just say, but you're never gonna be reliant on them. You don't want to be reliant because that's gonna destroy your margins. All right, and finally, how to build your campaign calendar, right? And here's how we think about it. And we run, email campaigns for 40 different brands. So this is the best way that we found to sort of plan things out and, to get everything scheduled in advance while still remaining pretty flexible as different client requests come up and different things change, etc. So number one, you want to mark important dates. So this is going to be holidays, product launches, and planned sales periods. All right. So these are sort of the main things that we're going to be, building everything else around or planning everything else around. Number two is add supporting campaigns. All right. So let's say we're launching a product in the first week of June. We also want to be, planning out the supporting campaigns such as the teaser before the launch, like how are we going to hype up the product, reminders during the sales, and last chance follow-ups after the product launch. And then finally, fill the gaps with micro topics. So you want to aim for 2 to 3 total campaigns weekly, rotating through different campaign angles. So using that, product launch example, first week of June, that first week is going to be dedicated towards, hyping up the product and building awareness around it as the product is released, sending follow-ups, etc. And for the rest of June, let's say that you don't have anything else planned, this is where those micro topics come in. All right, so this is the more nurture campaigns, value-focused campaigns, etc. And those go here, all right? And that's basically all of the other content that we covered earlier on in this video. And you generally want to plan at least 2 weeks ahead. See a lot of people try to plan like a month ahead, and that's okay, but a lot of different stuff comes up, so it's usually not that rigid. And you want to balance promotional campaigns with educational content and social proof to drive maximum revenue and engagement. Thanks so much for watching this video on how to write value-based campaigns without relying on discounts. If you want to check out some of our other videos on the email flow side of things, check out some of our in-depth tutorials here.